So I kind of want to start from the beginning, and you were one of the founding members of Greenpeace. So why did you choose to break away and establish the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society?
When I was with Greenpeace, it was a protest organization, and I felt there was a need to set up an organization that would intervene against illegal activities. So I set Sea Shepherd up as an anti-poaching organization.
Every year, 20,000 dolphins and whales are in fact slaughtered in Japan, and we do get to see a lot of the graphic images in the media. But you've been on these expeditions, you've seen firsthand. So what aren't we seeing?
Well, the problem is getting the people around the world aware of what's happening there. And but we are having some success this year. For the first time, there's been diplomatic pressure applied to the dolphin slaughter in Japan. It started with Caroline Kennedy tweeting that she thought that it was inhumane. That was followed up with protests from the United Kingdom, Germany, Italy, and Romania. Sorry. So Japan is certainly getting the message, and I think we're making progress on it this year because of that. You know, it's been a long time. We first went over there in 2003 to focus attention on this. The Cove, the movie The Cove, won the Academy Award in 2009, and it's a long process, but I think we're finally getting close to turning the tide on the issue.
So you do foresee it ending at some point?
Yes, but we call it Operation Infinite Patience because all of these things take a long time. You know, it took us 35 years to knock the market out of for the Canadian seal hunt, the baby seal hunt, where they were killing hundreds of thousands every year, and we finally shut that down. But it took we finally got the European Union to ban seal pelts, but that took, like I said, 35 years. So you have to be patient with these campaigns. Our campaigns down to the Southern Ocean to stop illegal whaling, we're now in our 10th year. But every year we're able to cut down their quotas. Last year they took less than 10% of the whales they wanted to kill. The year before that, 17%. So every year we're getting more effective.
So when you are at Bloody Cove and all these places where the mass slaughter is happening, what is kind of your role and all the other Sea Shepherds? What are you doing there?
Every campaign, of course, has a different strategy. When we're dealing with the dolphin hunt in Taiji, Japan, we're restricted because it's in Japanese territorial waters, it's in Japan. We have to abide by Japanese law, and our policy is to do what we do non-violently. We've never injured anybody in our 35 years of campaigning. In 2003, we did go in and we released 15 dolphins, and the two Sea Shepherd crew members who did that ended up being arrested and interrogated every day for 29 days, and finally released after we paid a significant bond, although it was certainly worth the $8,300 we had to pay in return for the lives of the 15 dolphins saved. But we realized that we couldn't do that all the time, so we decided that what we would do is be there every day from September 1st to March 1st and monitor everything so that no dolphin would be killed out of sight and out of mind. And now we're live streaming that. We're at thousands of people watching what's happening. So we want to make sure that really it's about increasing global awareness about what they're doing in Japan.
So on your website you do have a lot of pictures and images from these voyages when you're trying to help the dolphins and the whales and the sea otters, and I'm one of those people that find it really hard to watch. So what is it like when you're there? How do you kind of get through it, and how do you sleep at night knowing that these awful things are kind of happening?
I think you have to develop a sort of a detachment from all of this, and that's what we've done over the years. You know, we've seen baby seals being clubbed and dolphins being killed and whales being harpooned, and you just have to, it's almost, you have to be like a doctor when you're going into surgery. You have to be somewhat detached, or else you know, you just get desensitized to this. So I think that it's our duty to get these images out to people and make people aware of what's happening, and to shut them down when we can, physically intervene when we can. But it takes a lot of self-discipline. You can't get angry. You can't get overcome with emotion. You have to concentrate on what you need to do.
And what has been the worst thing that you have seen with your own eyes?
Oh, there's been so many things, you know, in the Canadian seal hunt. I've seen baby seals skinned alive right in front of me. They've done it just to, you know, to make us angry. They've kicked them in the face. In Japan, they spear and stab the dolphins indiscriminately. There's a lot of suffering on there. I find it amazing the Japanese government says this is a humane hunt. Well, the Canadian government said that the seal hunt was the most humane hunt in the world too, but we see just the opposite. The killing of pilot whales in the Faroe Islands, they say that's humane, but the animals struggle for up to 10 minutes before they're killed. And so it seems like they justify all of this by simply using the word humane, and everybody's supposed to believe it. But there's some horrendous killings that are going on out in the wild. The problem here is that what we do to sea life, to animals that live in the ocean, we would never condone on land. You know, when people say, well, there's no difference between the dolphin kill and a slaughterhouse where pigs and cows are being killed. Well, there's a significant difference. No slaughterhouse in the world would tolerate the abuse and the cruelty that is displayed during the killing of these dolphins and whales.
So is the biggest opposition the government, the Japanese government?
Yes, the Japanese government subsidizes the killing of whales. They support, with the police and other security agencies, they support the operations of the killers. The Japanese media is not very helpful either because they simply don't cover it. In fact, the average Japanese person was unaware of what was going on there for many years. We had to make it international for them to become aware of it. The Japanese media had to pick it up from foreign media sources. And so it's a very difficult society to get change in because, you know, the media is reluctant to do anything that the government finds or says that they don't want them to report on.
And then I want to switch gears a little bit. There is another huge problem of plastic in the ocean. So what do you hope to achieve through the Vortex project?
This has been a problem we've been concerned with for some time, at least 20 years. We know this plastic is going into the oceans. We know it doesn't break down. It gets caught in these currents and begins circulating in the ocean, and what these things called gyres, or what's also called the Pacific garbage patch. But they're in all the oceans, in the Atlantic, in the Indian Ocean also. And so what you have right now is about 7 million tons of plastic in our oceans. And they do break down. It breaks down into small particulate pieces that are then consumed by fish and birds, causing an incredibly high mortality amongst fish and birds, turtles. Recently, a sperm whale died because it choked to death on a Trader Joe's plastic shopping bag. So it's a significant problem, and it's one that people have had a hard time understanding. Well, how can we address this? With the Vortex project, we came up with this idea, well, let's remove the plastic and let's have the plastic pay for itself. And what our idea is to remove it and recycle it and turn it into yarn. So we're working with Bionic Yarn, the company, to do that. And then that yarn can then be made into clothing. In fact, we have clothing already made from plastic, linings, like it looks like fur, but it's not fur. It's actually plastic, and it's just as warm as fur. So right now we've got G-Star on board, and they want to make G-Star Raw wants to make jeans using incorporating plastic with bionic yarn into their product. And I think that this is something that is doable. Our side of the project is to research how to best remove it, which we're involved in. And it's a two-part thing: remove the plastic from the beaches of the world and offer an incentive to local people to gather and sell that plastic. And the more difficult part is to remove the plastic from the oceans. My idea is to incorporate a vacuum suction, which would bring the water and the plastic on board a vessel, bring it across a grid system, a mesh system that the water would seep through, leaving the plastic on the surface. And then the real problem is rescuing any wildlife that is poured onto that surface too immediately. And volunteers can do that, removing them as they come on board. Because the wildlife is very much intermixed with these plastic particulate matter. So we're really in the research and development stage of finding a means to remove that plastic. Meanwhile, we're going ahead with recovering the plastic from the beaches, and that's presently being used to make this bionic yarn fiber.
Paul, you have been at the head of this organization for over 35 years, and you've seen it all in terms of poaching and plastic and all these awful things that are happening in our oceans. But what is the biggest threat?
Well, the biggest threat, of course, is human overpopulation, because as human populations increase, they literally steal carrying capacity from other species, and species are going extinct at an unprecedented rate because of our demand for resources from the ocean, from the land. And so as populations go up, other species, the diversity goes down. The problem is that there's three laws of ecology. The first is the law of diversity, that the strength of an ecosystem is dependent upon diversity of species within it. The second is the law of interdependence of species, that these species are interdependent with each other, they need each other. And the third is the law of finite resources, that there's a limit to growth and a limit to carrying capacity because there's a limit to resources. And any species that has ever lived outside of those three laws of ecology have gone extinct. And I certainly don't want to see the human species go extinct because we're not respecting the laws of ecology, because Mother Nature bats last and will have the last word. Absolutely. And so we have to find a way of preserving biodiversity, and especially in the oceans. The way I look on it is that we're on a spaceship. That's what the Earth is. It's this ball of mud that's going around the galaxy at 500 miles a second. And like any spaceship, it has a life support system. And that life support system is our oceans and our forests that provide the air we breathe, the food we eat, regulates the temperature and the climate. That life support system is run by a crew. And that crew is not us. We're passengers. We're having a great time entertaining ourselves. But the crew are all of those species that make it possible for us to be here. The bacteria, the worms, the insects, the fish, all those, the trees, the plants, the flowers, all those species that run the life support system. What we're doing is killing off the crew, and there's only so many crew members we can kill off before the life support system begins to break down. For instance, I said a couple of years ago, I made a statement that everybody got all upset about, you know, especially on the Fox network, where they're coming after me because I said worms are more important than people. And everybody said, how could you say such an outrageous thing that worms are more important than people? And I said it because worms are more important than people. From an ecological point of view, we need them to survive. They don't need us. We need fish and bacteria and insects and bees and trees to survive, but they don't need us. So in that sense, from an ecological perspective, they are far more important than we are. If we're going to survive, we need them. And so that's the message I'm trying to get across. And the one singular message that I really constantly try to get across is this. If the oceans die, we die. We don't live on this planet with a dead ocean. You know, Jacques Cousteau said just before he died, the oceans are dying in our time. He also said if the navies of the world had any sense of responsibility, they'd be out there defending our oceans instead of playing silly little war games with each other. And in fact, last week I spoke to the French Senate and the French Navy and invited the French Navy to get involved in protecting the oceans. And they're actually, you know, seriously thinking about doing this. Because right now we have joint patrols with the government of Senegal and Liberia, the government of Guatemala and Ecuador, and our patrol boats and our volunteers are working with their law enforcement people, their Navy and their police, to provide them with the resources they need to protect their territorial waters.
Great. Well, thank you for your time and all the amazing work you're doing. It's truly admirable, and it was an honor to chat with you today.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Captain Watson.